The Panzer II, officially designated as the Panzerkampfwagen II, SDKFs 121, was a light tank developed by Nazi Germany in the 1930s and played a significant role during the early years of World War II. Although it was initially intended as a stopgap measure until more advanced medium tanks could be produced, the Panzer II became an essential component of the German blitzkrieg tactics due to its versatility and reliability. This detailed narrative will explore its origins, design, operational history, and eventual decline as a frontline combat vehicle. Origins and development, 1934-1936. The development of the Panzer II began in 1934, following the rearmament initiatives that emerged as Germany sought to rebuild its military might under Adolf Hitler's regime. At the time, Germany's tank development was still in its infancy, with only the Panzer II, a small machine gun-armed tankette, having been produced in limited numbers. While the Panzer I was useful for training purposes, it was poorly suited for combat. Recognizing the need for a more capable armored vehicle, the German Military High Command ordered the development of a new light tank. However, the planned Panzer III and Panzer IV, which were supposed to form the core of the German tank force, were not yet ready for production. To bridge this gap, the Heereswaffenamt, Army Weapons Office, initiated the design of an interim tank that would provide both better firepower and increased mobility. This vehicle became known as the Panzer II. The initial specifications for the Panzer II called for a light tank armed with a 20mm autocannon and a coaxial 7.92 MG34 machine gun capable of engaging lightly armored vehicles and infantry. The primary manufacturers involved in its development were Krupp, Henschel, and Mann, with the first prototype appearing in 1935 under the name VK622. By 1936, a series of trials and design revisions led to the mass production of the Panzer II AUSF, A, B, and C, which served as the initial models. Design characteristics. The Panzer II's design was relatively straightforward, yet effective for its time. The vehicle featured a fully traversable turret, housing the main armament, the 2-cylinder TWK-30 L55 autocannon, which was derived from an anti-aircraft gun design. This weapon provided the Panzer II with sufficient firepower to penetrate the thin armor of early war tanks and vehicles. A coaxial MG34 machine gun added suppressive fire capability. The Panzer II was powered by a Maybach HL62 TRM engine producing 140 horsepower, which allowed it to reach speeds of up to 40 km/h, 25 mph on roads, and 20 km/h, 12 mph off-road. It had a weight of around 9 tons, with armor ranging from 5mm to 15mm, which was sufficient to protect it against small arms and shrapnel, but not against larger anti-tank weapons. Its crew consisted of 3 men, a commander, who also served as the gunner and loader, a driver, and a radio operator. As production progressed, several modifications were made, resulting in variants such as the AUSF, D and E, which featured upgraded suspensions, and the AUSF, F, which had thicker frontal armor. Despite these improvements, the Panzer II remained underarmed and under-armored compared to other tanks that would emerge as the war progressed. Operational history. The Panzer II entered service in 1936, seeing its first combat during the Spanish Civil War, 1936-1939, where it provided valuable insights into modern tank warfare. Although it was not heavily engaged in this conflict, its presence marked the first time that Germany's newly developed armored forces were tested in battle. At the outbreak of World War II in 1939, the Panzer II was the most numerous tank in the German inventory, comprising around 38% of the Wehrmacht's armored strength. it was extensively used in the invasion of Poland in September 1939, where its speed and mobility proved advantageous in the fast-paced blitzkrieg strategy. Following the swift victory in Poland, the Panzer II continued to be a primary tank during the Battle of France in 1940, participating in the rapid advances through the Ardennes and the encirclement of Allied forces. However, by mid-1940, the limitations of the Panzer II became apparent. Its 20mm cannon struggled against the heavier armor of French and British tanks, such as the French Char B1 and the British Matilda II. Despite this, the Panzer II continued to serve in secondary roles, such as reconnaissance, throughout the early years of the war. The Panzer II was deployed in the North African campaign, where its lighter weight and speed made it suitable for the desert terrain. Here, it served primarily in a reconnaissance capacity, as more powerful tanks like the Panzer III and Panzer IV took on the main combat roles. Late war modifications and decline. As the war progressed, the Panzer II became increasingly obsolete as a frontline combat tank. Its thin armor and inadequate gun could no longer compete with the new generations of Allied and Soviet tanks. Production of the Panzer II as a combat vehicle ended in 1942, after approximately 1,800 units had been built. However, the basic chassis of the Panzer II proved adaptable, leading to the development of several specialized variants. One notable adaptation was the Marder II, a self-propelled anti-tank gun, mounting a captured Soviet 76.2mm gun or a German 75mm Pak-40. Another variant was the Vespi, a light self-propelled artillery vehicle armed with a 150mm howitzer. These vehicles extended the useful service life of the Panzer II chassis until the war's end. Post-war legacy and analysis. The Panzer II was a key element of the German armored forces during the early stages of World War II. While it was rapidly outclassed by more powerful vehicles, its contribution to Germany's initial successes should not be underestimated. It played a critical role in training crews, testing tactical concepts, and filling a necessary gap until more advanced designs became available. In retrospect, the Panzer II's greatest strengths were its speed, mechanical reliability, and ability to adapt to different roles. Its weaknesses lay in its light armament and armor, which made it vulnerable to heavier tanks and anti-tank weapons as the war evolved. Nevertheless, it serves as a reminder of the transitional phase in armored warfare and remains an iconic symbol of the Wehrmacht's early armored divisions. Today, surviving Panzer IIs can be found in various museums, serving as historical artifacts that represent the early evolution of German tank design during one of the most turbulent periods of military history.